Hello, everybody. Wow, that camera is way off center. What is up with that? Hello. Am I off center? I guess we'll go with that. Anyway, hey everybody, welcome to Adventures in History. It's been a bit of an exciting adventure this week, even getting to the concept of Adventures in History. The stream has been beset on all sides by workers of iniquity, most notably computer gremlins, and my own forgetfulness. So we were supposed to actually have this particular stream on Tuesday. Uncle Bill is here, look busy. Hey Ishmanite, how are you? Hope you're having a good one. So we were supposed to have the stream on Tuesday, and then the computer that I've been using to stream decided to and die. And I'm fairly certain that the culprit was the heat pump, which I have since replaced. Well, not replaced. I have ordered a replacement for it. Hopefully that will come in tomorrow, and then I'll be able to spend some time tomorrow doing computer surgery. Get my wife to do the little pat my forehead thing. Hey, Ametran, good to see you. Hope you're having a good one. Then I was supposed to stream on Thursday, or last night, and I brought home the laptop that I used to stream off of in the past, where, for the majority of time, I have been streaming off of an older laptop. And I brought the laptop home, but not the power cable. And it's surprising, but, streaming takes a lot of computing push, and also to run multiple, peripheral devices like a microphone and a camera and, keyboards and such. The battery was draining really, really rapidly, and I did not think that there was any chance we would get through an entire stream before the battery went dead. So we pushed back till today, but here we are. We are finally here. We can have Adventures in History, and we can continue with the history of the modern state of Israel. I feel like something is off, because I'm doing like this, and there's a depth perception issue here. I'm wondering if it's a canting issue. Is that not square? Is that better? I think that's better. And of course, because I have brought back my old computer, I had to tear down the old setup when I got in from work today, rebuild a temporary setup, reconfigure OBS for all of that fun. So it luckily, I was mentioning this to my wife, sort of unfortunately, I'm getting really used to having to rebuild stuff in OBS because I've had so many computer problems. So it's becoming much more fast for me to do all of this stuff and switch everything over. But that's not necessarily a happy thing because it's the result of lots of chaotic world events. So anyway, but we're here and we're going to have some fun. And we're going to talk about some stuff tonight that is very pertinent to the world that we live in today. So many of the modern issues and problems and tensions that exist within the region of basically the stuff that you see on the map over here, like right down there, is from this particular period of time. Or at least is exacerbated by the events that happened during this period of time. So, insert Theoden, "You have no power here" gif from Lord of the Rings about the laptop. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it was. Like, you have no power here. I will draw you, computer gremlin. Oh, good gracious. At least we can laugh about it, right? At least we can laugh about it. Hey, Cave Geek, good to see you. We're back on the topic of your homeland again. You're sure OBS will run like a charm. Let's not jinx it. At the moment, it's running fine. Things are looking okay. All of my little dials and bells and whistles and stuff are looking all right. I haven't dropped frames yet, so let's finger cross hope that everything's going to be okay. If stuff does happen, as always, we'll just roll with it because, life. But I think we're going to be all right. At least I hope so. Yeah, so as a bit of a premise, this is a viewer request stream. This is a request that was purchased with points by I Am Batbird. Batbird, I hope that you are able to make it. I know that with the craziness of everything, you might not have been able to get here. I hope at least by the time that we're done, Batbird gets to make it in. If not, there's always the VOD, which I know is not the same, but it's a consolation, right? Anyway, so we have been talking about the modern state of Israel, and this came up as a potential viewer request topic about 7 or 8 months ago, and it showed up in a poll because we sort of select stuff out of a poll sometime for viewer request streams. And I started working on the history of the modern state of Israel. And I wanted to basically cover it from the period of time prior to World War I, when the Ottoman Empire was still in control, all the way up until modern day. And I realized in the process of preparing for that stream that there was just no way I could dutifully and accurately portray all of the events that happened that were pertinent and important in that period of time, even though it's really only about, you could maybe stretch it out to 150 years, and there are periods of time in history where I can do 150 years in one stream, no big deal. But the technical aspect of a lot of this stuff has become very evident. I mean, I knew it was a very technical process already, but in the process of trying to actually be as impartial as possible and as informative as possible, I've decided that there's no way to do the particular story of the history of Israel unless we do it in installments. So our first installment of the history of modern Israel went from effectively the period of time where it was under the Ottoman Empire's control all the way up until the very beginning of the country after World War II. And then we went in our second installment, basically from that point in the 40s up through the end of the first prime minister's reign, a guy named David Ben-Gurion. So he was prime minister, and then he left for a little while, but then he came back, and we stopped at the point where he had basically come back. So I've noticed here that I have this information inaccurate. So this is not 47. This is 46. No. Where is the stream information? That's not it. Are you? No, that's not it either. Good gravy. Where are my text boxes? Hey, there we are. Boom. Okay. So today we are going to pick up where we left off last time. And this is basically in 1966. And we're really only going to cover about 6 years of history. And I know that at such a pace we'll basically never finish. We'll be doing the history of modern Israel part 12 or something like that, right? But not every series of events is as crucial as this stretch of time. This really, really is super important. And the period of time from about 66 to about 72 is so essential to figuring out what's going on in Israel today. And a lot of the problems that still exist, a lot of the tensions that still exist, that had been around prior to this period of time are really going to get sort of magnified and blown way up during this period of time. So, where are we? What's going on? What time are we in? How are we handling this? So, kind of basically, when we look at the state of Israel in 1966, they had just transitioned to a new prime minister. This guy's name was Levi Eshkol, I'm Spartacus. Oh wow, is that sound not playing? Because I'm not getting the sound, and I wonder if it's because I don't have some audio thing set up the right way. Well, Metrand, I don't know if you actually got to hear Spartacus. No sound here, but you yelled it, so it's fine. Well, I'm sorry that you didn't get Spartacus. I appreciate the subscription. Thank you very, very much for all of your support. We know that you're Spartacus, and we cheer on with you. I think I might have that fixed. For some reason, my headphones were the default audio setting, but I don't have any headphones plugged in, so I don't know. It's a new computer setup, so there are likely to be some gremlins. But anyway, now we should have audio. Fingers crossed, hopefully, right? Okay, so Levi Eshkol is... Ooh, wrong button. Is this gentleman. Boop. And he had been in the Israeli government for a while. He had been at various positions inside of the Israeli government, had been sort of in a cabinet level position, and had been kind of not necessarily handpicked, but definitely given the go-ahead by David Ben-Gurion, who was still going to be very active in politics, even though he was not going to be prime minister anymore. It's not too long after this that he's actually going to sort of form a new political party, and that's going to sort of be going on in the background. But Eshkol is a sort of a different type of leader, but that's okay, because at this point Israel was more or less established, because they had a lot of international relationships, and they had people that were going to basically back them in the case that stuff was going bad, especially the country of France. Israel and France had been trading for quite some time. This is a fairly old established relationship that had been going on for about basically since the formation of the State of Israel. And the thing that they were getting from France especially was military hardware. They were getting things like military installation radar kind of things. They were getting airplanes and getting tanks and guns and such. But because of some really sort of complicated international power struggle things, that basically falls back to the general consensus of Cold War. The Cold War is sort of heating up during this period of time. France in 1966 is going to decide that it can't necessarily continue selling war material to Israel. And this is a potentially big blow, because Israel at that point was still a very new country. It had not set up a lot of internal infrastructure kind of things. They were still working on bringing in stuff from their reparation deal that they made with West Germany. So like every year they were buying things to build their infrastructure, which had not necessarily been fully established yet. So the fact that they were able to get these things from France was a pretty big deal. And this is going to leave Israel potentially in a bad spot. And this is going to be an opening for the United States. Hey, Moose, good to see you. Hope you're having a good one. Been juggling a ton of stuff, maybe getting a new job. Oh, wow. Well, I hope that the new job is because you want it and not because you have to. And I hope that whatever happens ends up being the best for your situation. I really do. I know that changing jobs is such a stressful thing. Such a stressful thing. So I appreciate you being here when you can. We miss you when you're not, but life happens, and you don't by any means have to be here all the time. We don't take roll. It's not that kind of school, right? Anyway, so the U.S. is going to step into the gap here and begin to basically make arms deals with Israel. And when people inside of the United States start getting a little bit antsy about this, the government's official stance is basically that this is to promote stability in the region. And one of the reasons that they say that this is sort of promoting stability is because during this period of time, the Russians were really reaching out to countries in the Middle East, trying to convince these Middle Eastern countries to sort of line up with communism. And they had made some deals with Egypt. And Egypt was still very much a big player in the region. The guy that was running Egypt at the time is still Gamal Abdel Nasser, this guy. And Nasser, even though he's, pictured here with a really big grin, is grinning maybe at the thought of the destruction of the state of Israel, because he did not really care for Israel and was very interested in sort of promoting not only himself but Egypt however he could. So that's going to leave him at a position where making deals with Russia was okay. So the United States felt like we need to be able to back our friends in Israel, so stability was the name of the game. And this is going to sort of keep everything at a low simmer for a little while, but things are still going on. There are still almost constant border skirmishes, especially on the border between Egypt and Israel, and the border between the territory in the Sinai Peninsula that Israel was holding. So one of the things that had happened in our last discussion was this war where Israel basically swooped down with the aid of France and Britain and took almost all of the Sinai Peninsula, almost up to the canal, the Suez Canal, which runs right here. Now, the United Nations had involved itself, and the United Nations had basically placed a lot of troops sort of right here in the middle. So you have the Egyptian army that was sort of over here on the Sinai, and you have the Israeli army occupying part of the Sinai, and then you have the United Nations troops in the middle. And there were exchanges of mortar fire and cannon fire across that border. Of course, at this point in history, Jordan controlled this region right here, which is referred to as the West Bank, referring to the west bank of the Jordan River. So there were Fedayeen, Fedayeen, by the way, are Palestinian freedom fighters who were conducting raids against targets within Israel. There were several strikes coming out of Jordan, and also over here between Syria and Israel, the region right here, the Golan Heights was still sort of under question at that time, very much like it is now. And this is going to sort of keep Israel on its toes. There's going to constantly be going on and doing stuff. And the PLO, the group that represents the Palestinians at the time, was mostly based in Jordan. And let's remember also that the Arab countries in the region had formed a sort of cooperative group called the Arab League. And the big members were Egypt and Jordan and Syria and Iraq. Lebanon was involved to a certain extent. Also Algeria to a certain extent. Also Sudan and Morocco to a certain extent. But mostly it's the four states here: Egypt, Jordan, Iraq, and Syria. Those are the main sort of central four Arab League members, and the PLO was very much involved with coordinating efforts with the Arab League. So you have all of these forces sort of in motion, making usually very small strikes back and forth. But Nasser is going to take things up a notch. And let me go ahead and put him up here. So Nasser, again, is the sort of the controlling force behind the Arab League. He's definitely one of the more powerful figures in the Arab League. And he is going to take it upon himself to act sometimes rather unilaterally and then just kind of expect the Arab League to back him up. And one of the things that's going to happen that's going to cause a substantial amount of issue are with this region called the Strait of Tiran. Is that going to fit? Yeah, it fits. Okay. And that area, if we look on the map, is this little zone right here. So this is the Red Sea. This, of course, goes down to connect the Indian Ocean to the Mediterranean Sea. The Red Sea, of course, is connected by the Suez Canal. But the reason this particular little strait right here is important is because of the Israeli port right here. And Israel was getting about somewhere between 85 and 90% of its oil through this port. And it was also getting movements of food and raw materials through that port. So when Egypt shuts this port down using the Egyptian Navy, this effectively cuts off Israel's southern port. And this had been something that was a potential threat for a while. And the Israeli government had basically declared that if Egypt shut the Strait of Tiran, that this would be a reason to go to war. And Nasser, when he decides to cut off the Strait of Tiran, he knows what he's doing. Just a tiny amount of land giving them access to it. Yeah, so if we sort of zoom in, we can get right down here on it. So this is Israel right here. This is Egypt, right? So it's a pretty small little strip, but between this little area, you have Jordan on this side and Israel and Egypt. And this is an important port for the Israelis. Even today, it's still a very important port. I have been right here in Aqaba, just across the border. But I have never actually been to the state of Israel. I'd love to go. I'd really love to go. So Israel had basically made a statement, and this was done years ahead of time, or years prior, that if Egypt ever decided to blockade the Strait of Tiran, that this would be a reason to go to war. And Nasser did it knowing that this was going to put Israel in a bad state, and he did it basically as a strong arm technique. And this is going to bring us to the title of tonight's stream. The Secretary General of the United Nations at the time is, where's my images? Is this guy. Ooh, nope, that's not him. That's President Abdullah Salam from, nope, that's Nasser. This guy. This guy's name is Thant. So the joke is, of course, Thant touch this. Bit of ha kind of joke. Anyway, he was the Secretary General of the United Nations. And he gets what is basically a ultimatum. Nasser sends the United Nations word that if the United Nations does not remove its troops from Egyptian territory, that Egypt will not remove the blockade from the strait. Now, it's fair to admit that Egypt had sovereignty over its land and had a position to demand the United Nations to leave. But here's the thing. The only thing keeping Israel forces and Egyptian forces from literally going at each other was the UN that was standing in the middle. So if the United Nations forces leave, this could be, basically just get out of our way and let us duke it out. And Thant is in a bit of a pickle, because he knows that, and basically everybody knows that, and he doesn't wait to take this to the Security Council. He doesn't bring this to a popular vote. He just makes a unilateral decision. And the decision is, we're going to remove the troops. And this is kind of a moment. Nasser had been going on the radio basically yelling, about the imposition of foreign governments and the powers that were taking over Egyptian citizenship and blah, blah, blah. And I've actually got several quotes that I found tonight that I want to read directly because I feel like this could give context to some of these situations that I can tell you, but I can actually let these people speak for themselves. And when this decision is coming through, where Thant is basically going to move the troops, Nasser is saying stuff like this, and I quote, "The battle will be a general one, and our basic objective will be to destroy Israel." So Nasser is saying, look, we know that when these troops leave, there's going to be a fight. We just know. And when we start fighting, our goal is going to be to destroy Israel. Like, he literally just says it. Like, there's no mincing of words. There's no debates or shades of interpretation. It's just, we know there's going to be a fight. It's going to be a big fight, and we're going to try to destroy Israel. And this is when stuff is really going to start going kind of spitbally haywire stuff. Because when the UN moves out, the Arab League Defense Pact is going to start mobilizing. So you have Egypt and Syria and Jordan and Iraq and Algeria mobilizing troops. What is Israel's response going to be? Well, if you're Israel, you know that what you need to do is you need to mobilize your own army. So they do. Israel mobilizes its entire army. It calls up all of its citizen reserves. And the government of Israel forms a temporary government. So they're a parliamentary system. They have multiple different parties, and most all of their parties are coalition governments. But in the face of this threat, we see the Israeli government basically pulling together everybody. Hey, Asnola, good to see you. It's been a bit. How are you? Hope you're doing well. Yeah. How are things down on the other side of the world? I hope you're doing well, my friend. It's good to see you. So Eshkol pulls together this government, and he gets basically everybody involved. And this is a unity government. You might not know it, but you lurk on a Discord. Okay, cool. Well, I mean, you're welcome to lurk. You can lurk as much as you would like. You went to Rhode Island Comic-Con last weekend. Is RI Rhode Island? Or is RI something else that I don't know? Did all Israeli citizens have to serve in the military at this point? Yes. So after a certain age, you had to do military service. And the civilian reserves were basically people that were of age, that had gone through basic military training and done a little bit of work, but that had gone out of military work to go on to do other things, like go to university or, get a job or do other things. So they had a fairly big sized military for a country so small, because a lot of their people had been sort of required to go through actually required to go through military training. So they put together their army pretty fast. They form a new unity government under Eshkol. But even so, people are still very uncomfortable with the situation, because Eshkol, while being a competent leader, was not necessarily the world's best public speaker. And he gave some speeches that said all the right things, but he didn't necessarily he wasn't conveying it very well. So what they do is this new unity government is going to bring in some sort of old hands, especially Moshe Dayan. And we talked about this guy last time. He was sort of and he's going to come in as the position of defense minister. And he had been minister of defense during the Sinai War, which happened just a few years ago back. This, by the way, is where the UN sort of imposed itself to begin with. And I remember people commenting that this guy looks like a military dude, so I decided I needed to bring a picture of him back. Hey, Lumpy, good to see you. So this is Moshe Dayan. He had basically been a very steady presence on the tiller when he was sort of defense minister during the Sinai crisis, when the new unity government brings him back and puts him back in charge of the defense mechanism. This is going to bring a lot of sort of relief, because this guy was trusted. He had been particularly good at what he was doing. He kind of looks like an Indiana Jones villain. Yeah, he kind of does. Kind of, sort of. I can see that. But this guy's going to be the dude that sort of gets put in charge of handling all of the military stuff. And this brings a lot of people kind of a public breath of relief. So we have these forces organizing. Did his face melt later? No. This would have been actually after Indiana Jones opened the Ark. So if we follow the storyline, Indiana Jones actually opened the Ark prior to World War One. So that would have been about a little bit over 30 years prior, if we're saying that Indiana Jones was a real person. Okay, I missed some stuff here. I've also not done shout-outs. Let me do shout-outs. We have Cave Geek Art in the house with us tonight. Cave Geek is an artist that does really interesting stuff with buckskin and a pyrograph tool. Makes maps where the stuff ends up being three-dimensional. It's really, really interesting. I'm doing a horrible job of describing it. You should go follow Cave Geek because he's a cool dude. We also have the Professor Lumpy Dragon Potato in the room tonight. Lumpy Dragon Potato is a Twitch streamer that streams mostly Minecraft stuff. Sometimes does adventure Minecraft, but usually works on a sort of a personal Minecraft world that is absolutely fabulous. And you're starting a new funky project tomorrow. So tomorrow morning here in the States, usually when I wake up on Saturdays, Lumpy is one of the people that I check to see if they are streaming. And it's a good time. You wake up in the morning, you sit down with your PJs and a cup of coffee, and you watch Lumpy build these amazing structures. And it's really cool stuff. So you should go follow Lumpy. A monastery with a deflated bouncy castle. That's great. That's great. Okay. Finally got up and running. I did, KP. I did. All right, let me catch up with chat. Poetic. There's Snowlock coming in. Rhode Island Comic Con. How was Rhode Island Comic Con? I've never been to Rhode Island at all, so I don't know what it would be like. All Israeli citizens have to serve the military even now. You knew that was the case. You just didn't know if it always had been the way. Yeah. So since Israel formed as a country, well, I guess since at least 1948. There has been mandatory universal conscription, which is basically where everybody of a certain age has to go in and do a certain number of years. So that has been true since the beginning. World War One. You thought there were Nazis in the first Indiana Jones, so that puts it in the early 30s. I think the first Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, happens in 1934. I believe that's the setting, and somebody can go check me on Google if you want to. I believe it's set in 1934. You got to help a vendor there. Cool. That's great, and I hope that people were responsible, and I hope that there wasn't a massive COVID outbreak. Okay, so we have all of these forces moving around. We have these people mobilizing armies and building up forces along the borders of Israel. And let me get some images going here. Where are my images? Nope. I don't need you. We're going to look at this guy. Okay, so this guy is a guy named Abd al-Salman Arif, and he was at the time the president of Iraq, and he was in the process of doing this build-up. Wikipedia says 1936, so I was pretty close. Thank you, Lumpy, for checking me on that. I knew it was in the 30s, but I could not remember exactly when it was. Rhode Island is one of the 2 points. Is one of the points in the U.S. that you have on your list of places that you want to visit, mainly because of your fascination with Lovecraft. I do also like Lovecraft quite a bit.
I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus.
Shiggy with the Spartacus coming in hot. I'm clicking everywhere and I'm doing everything wrong and I'm making everything look silly. There we go. No, that's not actually the button that I wanted to click on. I wanted to click on this one. Hey, there we are. Hey, Shiggy, good to see you. Thanks so much for that subscription. I really do appreciate it. 3 months, so we're like in our first trimester of a Twitch baby. So start thinking of a name. You enjoy visiting Brown University in Providence for an interview? Super waspy neighborhood. Oh, nice. Interesting. Anyway, let's go back to our images. I want to show you this guy's picture because I found some quotes, and I want to read President Arif's quote that he gave about the potential battle that was coming with Israel. And this is, again, a direct quote. And he says, quote, "The existence of Israel is an error which must be rectified. This is an opportunity to wipe out the ignominy which has been with us since 1948. Right? So, again, this is a head of state saying our job and our goal here is to wipe out Israel. And the reason that I'm reading all of these and talking about all of this stuff is about to be made fairly evident, and I want to make sure that I'm fully explaining why stuff happens here. Again, I do try to do a lot of research on this and make sure that I am fully able to explain things from sort of a 365-degree angle. I'm not trying to pick sides. I'm just trying to explain what happened. All right, so one more before the proverbial stuff hits the fan. This gentleman, this guy's name is Hafiz al-Assad. And if you think, hey, that guy looks like Bashar al-Assad. Yeah, they're from the same family. He, at the time, was the defense minister of Syria. He would go on to be the president of Syria for a while. He had been in the Syrian military for a while, and here is his quote, or here is one of his quotes. Again, this is while Syria is mobilizing forces along the border with Israel. He says, quote, "I, as a military man, believe that the time has come to enter into a battle of annihilation." A battle of annihilation. That's pretty strong, right? It's hard to deny that these countries of the Arab League were actively trying to destroy Israel because they all said it. And I just read you their direct words. Now, why did I make such a big deal out of setting that up? Well, because of what happens next. So there is a fairly big debate about what's going to happen. And Eshkol was not necessarily against the idea of attacking, sort of a preemptive attack, but he was sort of on the fence about how exactly to do that. And there does appear to be quite a bit of debate inside of the unity government about how to go about doing things, who was going to do what, the timeline of this stuff. And it does seem like the David Ben-Gurion political faction and Moshe Dayan are going to sort of not necessarily bully Eshkol into an opinion, but definitely put a lot of pressure on him to agree with them. And the decision gets made that Israel is not going to wait to be attacked. They're going to attack first. And this is what sets off the 6-Day War. The 6-Day War goes from June the 5th to June the 10th of 1967. And you might not think that that's big of it's like 6 days, right? This is an enormously big deal, and this has major lasting repercussions that we are still dealing with today. And the reason I made such a point to describe the situation is because one of the things that is used against Israel as a sort of political talking point is that Israel acted as the aggressor in the 6-Day War. That they were the ones that started the shooting. They were the ones that started shooting first. That they were the ones that initiated the battles. And the reason I read all of those quotes was to apply context to that decision. Because if you have countries that are all around you, right? If you have a country on your southern border, your western border, and your northern border saying, we are literally trying to destroy you, that puts you in a little bit of a different mindset, and it might make you strike first if you have the opportunity. I'm not trying to say one side is right or is wrong here, but I think it's a pretty clear picture. I think you are intelligent people and can kind of figure out what's going on here. So what happens in the 6-Day War, we won't go through the individual battles like over and over and over. I won't try to go through every single movement of troops, but what I can do, this was so scary, we woke up and a huge war broken out. Shmonite, were you in Israel? Or were you just, you were alive during this time and recall it? Because if so, I am really going to start, okay. I was going to say, like, I was really about to start, like, plying you with questions like, okay, what was this and what was that? You're a touch older. Shmonite, we love everybody here. Age is a number, and it's all relative, right? Because time is really just how we feel it. I know that makes a lot of physicists very angry, but it kind of is. So the fighting starts mostly with air attacks. The Israeli Air Force is going to launch preemptive attacks against the Egyptian Air Force and the Syrian Air Force, and they're going to be able to blow up most of the forces while they're still on the ground, because again, the Egyptians and the Syrians don't really know what's coming. The Israeli Air Force just blows them up. And remember, these are Air Force fighter jets and bombers that they got from either France or the United States, so these are top-of-the-line fighters. And it's also fair to note that the Israelis had captured a couple of the MiG-21 fighters that Iraq and Syria and Egypt were using. The MiG was a Russian-made aircraft that was very, very popular during the Cold War period, and Israel had managed to capture several of those, take them apart, reverse engineer them, and actually had a couple of joint exercises with the United States Air Force where they had some of their pilots even fly them. So that the pilots of the Israeli Air Force knew their planes, but they also knew the limitations of the planes that their enemies were flying. So this gave the Israelis the edge of surprise, but also gave them the edge of skill. So the Egyptian and the Syrian Air Force gets wiped off the map on the first day of the war. And then it turns into the ground fighting. And it's almost like a rotor. Like, so the Israeli army moves down very quickly, and in what is honestly a startling display of skill, defeats the Egyptian army, wheels around, defeats the Jordanian and Iraqi army, and then wheels up and defeats the Syrian army. And in the process of these 6 days, they are going to completely take over the Sinai Peninsula. They're going to take over the Gaza Strip, the Golan Heights. They're going to take over East Jerusalem, and they're going to take over the West Bank. And I know that I'm saying all of these words. I actually do have, wait for it, I have a map. You knew that that was coming, right? I would never have made it through an entire stream without showing you a map. Okay, so here we go. Before and after the 6-day war. So here's Israel as it stood before the 6-day war. Again, here's the Sinai Peninsula, Jordan. At this time, the country of Jordan was referred to as Transjordan because the territory here in the West Bank was actually considered part of Jordan itself. We have Syria. The border here is much more flat. Note that they are taking some territory up here. And the city of Jerusalem was divided. If we kind of zoom in here, there was part of Israel, what is called West Jerusalem, or the new city, which was in Israel. But the east part of Jerusalem, or what's called the Old City, was in the Jordanian territory. So if we look over here, this is what Israel was managed to take in 6 days. In 6 days, they were basically able to double the size of their territory, at least. And this really is kind of a military miracle. No one expected this. No one really expected this. This was startling. This was shocking. And this sent really big waves through the entire world. America and Russia were watching this. The Arab world was watching this. Everybody was watching this. And Israel comes out the overwhelming winner. And here's what starts happening outside. So as soon as the fighting started, as you might expect, Thant, again, Thant is the guy that's the Secretary General. So Thant and the larger United Nations immediately starts yelling, "You've got to stop fighting." And the United Nations starts to try to get back in there, and this is sort of a mess because Thant had just previously pulled United Nations troops out of the Sinai, and now he's like, this was a bonehead moment. What was I doing? It's crazy. Now we need to get back in there. And neither Egypt nor Israel want to really get involved. So the United Nations says, look, you've got to stop. You've got to stop fighting. And here's the thing. The Arab countries didn't really have any other option. Their air forces had been crippled. Their ground forces had been soundly defeated. They really didn't have any other options except for basically throwing literally whatever was left at Israel. And Israel had taken so few casualties and was in such a dominant position of strength, it really might not have even been beneficial to the other countries to continue, because Israel then might have invaded their countries. And to a certain extent, Israel had already occupied parts of other territories that they did not technically have. But Jordan did not want Israel crossing the Jordan River to come at Amman. Egypt did not want Israel crossing the Suez Canal coming into Egypt. So they decided, we'll agree to a ceasefire. And Israel goes, okay, look, we'll stop fighting, but we're not giving up anything. And the United Nations was like, whoa, whoa. You got to give up all this land. And you got to go back to the way that the borders were. And Israel says, no. And this, of course, is going to create a lot of tension. Because now parts of Syria are in Israel. Parts of Jordan are in Israel. parts of Egypt are in Israel's military domination. Tell them to win next time. Wow. For a sense of scale and better understanding, what rough percentage of the army did these countries lose in the war? So Syria, Iraq, and Egypt lost about 100% of their air force. And they lost probably between 35 and 50% of their ground forces. And Israel lost a few planes, maybe 10-15% of their air force, and they lost a couple hundred. Well, no, they lost maybe a couple thousand troops. It was not. It was very, very one-sided. It was a startling military victory, one by which nobody really expected. I'm sure that if you look up 4 armies in 6 days, it's crazy. It's really crazy. One of the great things about Wikipedia now is, especially for wars, they kind of have little boxes on the side of the page. I would bet that if you looked at the Wikipedia for the 6-day war, it would give you a more accurate breakdown of troop losses and such. I feel like I probably should have memorized all of those statistics before I came on stream, but I didn't. So, bad me. Anyway, so what happens? What happens? Well, first off, when Israel moves into Jerusalem, the city of Jerusalem, of course, is the most holy city for all of the Jewish faith. And Israel had always considered Jerusalem to be the capital of their nation, and had always considered the fact that part of Jerusalem being occupied by Muslim forces that were non-friendly with the Jewish people was an affront. The 6-day war seems like definition of F around and find out. Yes, that's pretty much it. Technology difference was the key factor. It must have justified the world race for armaments. So there was a technological element, because the stuff that Russia was making was really good, but the stuff that the war material that Egypt had was a little bit older. Their guns were about a decade older, and their military forces were mostly about a decade older, from the 50s. And a lot of the stuff that Israel was getting was from the United States and was much more modern. So there was a technological edge. The surprise was probably the biggest element that was in the favor of the Israeli forces, because again, they were able to wipe out the air forces of Syria and Egypt before they even really got off of the ground. But the military of Israel was incredibly well trained and very disciplined, and was very skilled and tactical. They played to their strengths, even though they were on the offensive in some of these cases. They were able to roll up the enemy positions, and man, it's just the danger is real. That's a good one. Right in the pun gland. Yeah, that's a pretty good one. I appreciate the devil out of that one. The danger is real. Stream title. Should have been, right? Candidate at least. Yeah, I did not think of that one. So, when Israel takes East Jerusalem, it does so basically not too long after the war. I mean, the whole war is like 6 days, so it couldn't have been too long, right? But the war started on the 5th. Like, they had East Jerusalem by about the end of the 6th or the beginning of the 7th day. And as soon, and I do literally mean as soon, as the Israeli forces move into East Jerusalem. Well, I'll just show you what happens. This is a picture from East Jerusalem. The wall here is a particularly important location for the Jewish faith. This is referred to today as the Wailing Wall. This particular wall was... basically, it is the only piece of the Second Temple period structure that exists. So the Jewish temple, of course, was the center of their religious life. The Second Temple was built after the Jewish people returned from Babylonian exile. So this is in the very late, mostly in the 600s BC is when the Second Temple was first reconstructed. It was then rebuilt during the period of Herod the Great, and this particular wall is really all that's left of it. The temple itself was destroyed by the Romans at the end of the first Jewish revolt in 67 to 70. Well, I guess technically the revolt ran until 73, but the last 3 years was basically the siege of Masada. And I'm getting a little bit around myself. But anyway, you roll up a prayer and put it on a piece of paper and put it in the cracks, right? Yes. That's part of it. Mur de lamentation in French. The Hebrew name is way simpler. It simply means the Western Wall because it's the Western Wall of the temple. There we go. Yeah. So what we see here in the foreground are remains. And we see bulldozers and skidders because as soon, and I do literally mean as soon, as East Jerusalem was conquered and taken by the Israeli forces, they began to demolish a particular area called the Moroccan Quarter. The Moroccan Quarter was part of the old city, and it was basically right outside of the Western Wall here, and there was only a really sort of a narrow gap that allowed people to walk down a little street right here. So the Israeli forces come in and basically demolish all of this stuff and start pushing it out. And you go, well, how did they manage to do that? They managed to do that because the military was there. And the Moroccan Quarter was inhabited. There were a whole bunch of homes there. And there was basically no warning given. Or if there was a warning given, it was because people down the block from you were getting their house bulldozed. There were civilians killed in this demolishing activity. Some civilians refused to... there were about... I don't know exactly how many homes, but there were about 400 people living in this area. About 400 residents in this particular little village, or sort of... It's a quarter, a Moroccan quarter. Right around this particular area. There were some people that refused to leave their homes, and the bulldozers just basically pushed their homes down on top of them. Even once the demolition was done and the area started getting cleaned off, the Israeli government did not allow the people that were living in those homes to try to go back and salvage anything. They were basically just pushed out and told you have to go. That's the end of the scenario. Now, there's a lot of debate about this particular scenario here in the situation around what happened. It's fair to say a few things. So first off, when they officially annex East Jerusalem, this is after the Six-Day War is over. It was about a couple months after the Israeli government officially annexes East Jerusalem. And at that point, they offered citizenship to anybody living in East Jerusalem. So they did say, if you live here, you can be a citizen of Israel. And this was a full citizenship offer. They were not going to give them like partial stuff, or like you can be a limited citizen, or you can't vote, but you have legal rights. This was full citizenship. But a lot of people did not take this, especially people that were in the Moroccan Quarter, because they no longer had homes. And the situation got to the Israeli courts, and the courts were asked, why this was allowed to happen and whether or not it was legal. And unfortunately, one of the decisions of the court was, yeah, it was illegal because they didn't do it the right way, but it was a good thing that it happened. And this gets a lot of UN attention, and there were a whole bunch of pressures on Israel to basically admit that this was something that was kind of shadily done, done with a lot of questionable motives. And the Israeli government came out with a whole bunch of documentation that basically said, oh, okay, so here's the deal. We had all of these surveys done of the area, and the surveys were a health hazard and they were a slum. So we didn't destroy this area because there were Arab people living there and we wanted to be close to this holy site in our faith. We destroyed this area because it was a slum and it was a health hazard. So that's why we destroyed it. The religious thing was sort of a happy coincidence, if you will. And that did not convince a lot of people, just to be honest. A lot of people were very upset with this, and the Israeli government then tried to do what it could, I guess, in a limited way to pay reparations. So to the people that lived in the Moroccan Quarter or some of the other areas that had been forcibly vacated during the period of time where they were doing all this construction, they offered these families what would have been about $500. It was like 250, 300 Jordanian dinars as a way of compensation. So let's remember that in 67, 500 United States dollars is a lot more than it is today. But still, there were people that lost their lives in this, and lots of people lost their homes. So this war was proactive on the Israeli side, and they did do some stuff that is questionably motivated. Again, I'm not necessarily trying to pick a side here. I clearly have an opinion. You probably know what my opinion is. I'm just trying to report things as they happened, right? So the 6-Day War itself, barely a few thousand, though, still a paltry sum. Yeah, it wasn't much. It wasn't much. It was not necessarily something that they were going to be able to go buy a new house with. So where is my... Yeah, there we go. All right. So the 6-Day War is over. What is the Arab League response? Well, the Arab League decides to meet, and they meet in Khartoum, which is the capital of Sudan. And the Arab leaders are notably upset at the outcome of the 6-Day War. And it should be noted that the whole time that all of this stuff is going on, the United Nations is basically trying to beat both belligerent sides into some sort of agreement. Israel has basically everything that it wants at this point and is not really wanting to budge. And the Arab countries are effectively kind of powerless to deal with this unless they decide to do stuff like cozy up more to Russia, which is actually one of the things that happens during this time. Because Russia's like, hey, you need some military backing? Hey, you need some war material stuff? You want to, bulk up your border security? You come to the motherland and we'll take care of you. Again, it's the Cold War, right? So the Khartoum meeting produces something that's very, very famous, and it's referred to as the Khartoum Resolution. Sometimes this is referred to in history as the 3 No's. Motherland, guns, and ammo. Yeah. Come to Motherland, guns, and ammo. We sell you guns and ammo. So the 3 No's. And the 3 No's say there will be no peace with Israel. There will be no recognition of Israel. And there will be no negotiations with Israel. And this was signed by the entire Arab League and held in sort of a central ideology for all of their foreign policy from that point forward. No peace, no recognition, no negotiation. But the UN is still trying to negotiate. The UN's like, oh, dude, come on now. We've got to do something. There's got to be something we can get you all to agree to. There's got to be some way for us to try to basically convince everybody to get on board with this. And the United Nations puts forward something that is equally important. And this is something that you might have heard of, but it's called Resolution 242. And the sort of slang term for this is land for peace. So the United Nations inserts itself into this situation, and they try to get both sides to agree to this, where basically it creates a hypothetical term of negotiation, which the Arab League is not necessarily interested in anyway, but they're interested in at least hearing out what Israel is going to offer. But Resolution 242 says, basically, if Israel is willing to return occupied territory to the country from which it took it, then that country should be willing to negotiate a peace treaty with Israel. So land for peace. If Israel gives you back your land, will you make peace with Israel? And the Arab parties are like, we'll listen. And the Israelis are like, we'll see. And so Resolution 242 gets accepted, but let's be real here. Neither side really cares for this. The United Nations is really just going to try to use this framework as negotiations moving forward. And that is why Resolution 242 is most important. This is going to be important all the way through the 70s for negotiations. This is going to be important up until the 80s with negotiations. And the idea here of land for peace is still something that is being used today to try to bring Israel and the Palestinian, the PLO, to the conversation table together. So the Resolution 242 is not important because everybody got really excited about it and jumped on board immediately. It's important because it established at least a theoretical framework where Israel and Arab countries could negotiate with each other. So it's not nothing. It's a pretty important moment, and it's still sort of moved in circles today. Now, what's actually going on the ground? Well, the stuff that's going on the ground is really nasty. There is still very much a lot of sort of border scuffling. There are sort of ramp ups of PLO activity. There are a couple of different organizations that join together to make the PLO. One of them is called Fatah, and that group had been sort of the kind of dominant or larger group of the PLO, and they were based at that time in Jordan. And they had really started pushing up the Fayadeen attacks into Israel, especially into occupied West Bank, Sinai, Gaza Strip areas. Before I go on, it's important to note that when Israel took over these territories, when they took over the Golan Heights, when they took over the West Bank, when they took over the Gaza Strip, when they took over the Sinai, those areas did not get the citizenship option. The only occupied territory that got the citizenship option was East Jerusalem. So the West Bank, the Golan Heights, the Gaza Strip, and the Sinai were all being treated as military districts, where basically this area was militarily occupied. And those people who had originally been the Palestinian people in most parts were then basically removed from a lot of international oversight to Israeli military oversight. And that is the case for 3 of these areas even today. Even today, the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, and the Golan Heights are still militarily occupied by Israel. The countries of the world do not recognize that Israel owns that land. Israel says that it owns that land. And that is why stuff like Israeli settlements in the West Bank are such an issue. That is why the segregation that is going on where Israel's basically building these big 20-foot tall cement and rebar walls around the Gaza Strip and the West Bank are big deals. Because even today in 2021, the areas that the Israeli government and military occupied in the Six-Day War are still under military occupation. And the people that are in that area since then have been offered a couple of different pathways to citizenship, but have never been given citizenship. Francisco Games? Yeah. Oh, Brittany got to kill a bot. Thanks, babe. I know you like sniping the bots. So, there's a scenario here going on where the Palestinian group Fatah is going to start doing basically whatever it can to hinder the military occupation, because they don't recognize that Israel owns the West Bank. They still recognize that Jordan owns the West Bank. And in a particular instance, they're going to put some landmines down across a road, and they're going to blow up some trucks, some equipment trucks. And at this point, Israel's just going to decide, we're not really going to deal with this stuff anymore. And they launch an attack into Jordan. The IDF, the Israeli Defense is going to strike at Fatah inside Jordan, at basically the kind of headquarters of Fatah inside of Jordan. And it's not going to go very well. The Israelis are going to take really high casualties. This is going to be one of the few times where the IDF doesn't do really what it had been designed to do, and it fails pretty badly on this particular one. They lose a lot of people. And this is actually by the way, this is in 1968. This is going to be used as a propaganda tool for the PLO, and it's going to draw a lot of attention to the PLO ideology, because after the Six-Day War, man, it seemed like Israel was almost invincible. But here we here we go, where we fought them off, we were able to kill them, we were able to keep ourselves safe and peaceful and all that stuff. So join our cause, line up behind us. They're never going to give us our land back, etc., etc. So this is actually going to be used to swell the ranks of the PLO. Hey, Batbird. The big computer is still dead. The computer that I'm using right now is my old laptop that I was using to stream for most of my streaming career. I just brought it back home from work, and I reconfigured everything so that I could stream from it. So this is a temporary solution. Hopefully the new fan will come in tomorrow, and I will be able to install that and get the temperature back down on the new computer so that I'm able to stream from it and get all of that stuff going. But also, welcome. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're having a good one. You're kind of curious as to how Krav Maga was developed by Israeli Special Forces. They liked fighting with knives, and I don't actually know the specific story of that. I know that they had a lot of influence from, oh crud, what's the French martial art thing that the police over there know? I can't say the word. Fiddlesticks. There's a French French martial art that they teach to their military and their police, and I can't remember the word for it, but I think that Krav Maga came from that to a certain extent, but I really don't know. I should probably not say words that I'm not familiar with or don't know for certain. I feel like the French thing starts with a B, and it's like Savat. That's what it is, Savat. I don't know why I was thinking B. Thank you, Moose. I feel like Savat played into it some, but I'm not sure. Okay, so with the the finger quote victory of the PLO, especially the Fatah branch, over this IDF incursion into Jordan, there are going to be other groups that start kind of really turning on the attack phase. And one of them is a new smaller group that's going to be pretty important, so we'll give you the whole name here. So this is the whole name. It's called the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. And you're like, wasn't that the group from Monty Python's Life of Brian? The Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, or basically we shorten this to the PFLP. The PFLP, Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. They are also going to be based in Jordan. They're going to have outposts. I said that wrong. They're going to have outposts in Jordan, but they're going to be based in Syria. So the PFLP is going to join the larger Palestinian Liberation Organization, the PLO, in '68, and they're going to come in basically as the second largest group. So you have Fatah, and then you have the PFLP. You have Minecraft networking activities to attend to, and on Friday night you help live translate a saucy date game stream. Oh, cool. Your course is riveting, though. Thank you for the lesson. Lumpy, thank you so much for coming by. I hope you have a great one. I hope that your potato night is a lovely one. And I hope that you get to say lots of saucy things that make you go, hee. Oh, it works that way? You'll call yourself the Popular Metrand, and then people have to act as if you are popular. Sure, Popular Metrand, if that's your gig. You make yourself a little acronym, and then it works even better, right? Okay, so the PFLP is going to join up with the PLO, and this group is going to be especially interested in ratcheting up the tension. And the PFLP is going to start striking at Israeli targets outside of Israel. And they especially start messing around with planes. So there are a couple of instances where, and my nose is doing that thing where I start streaming and immediately my nose starts itching. I have no idea why my nose starts itching like that. But every time I start streaming, it starts itching like that. It's crazy. I don't know. Maybe it's just me talking loudly and it's sort of like vibrating in my sinus cavities. I don't know. I promise I'm not a cocaine addict. You get the exact same thing. I just constantly look like I'm doing this. Like, anyway, so the PLO is going to love the fact that the PFLP is so involved, and they're going to start targeting airplanes. And there are a couple of instances where PFLP members shoot up some airplanes, like they managed to get out onto the tarmac and shoot at some airplanes with some machine guns. But they also start hijacking things. They start hijacking planes that have Israeli citizens on them. And this is going to be especially troublesome because, of course, when you hijack a plane, you're going to start taking hostages, right? So there's a flight that comes out of Athens that gets hijacked. The most famous one is TWA Flight 840 that gets hijacked by the PFLP. And this stuff is causing a lot of trouble because Israel, acting within its borders, has a lot of, ability to act. But when it goes to Israeli citizens abroad in Europe or, in Africa, how do they necessarily police that? It's very difficult for them to project their power, especially when these PFLP members are basically being shuttled around by the Arab League. Because the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, who's run by this guy named Arafat, is big buddies with the Arab League leaders. So much so that I have this great image. So here we have Arafat, Yasser Arafat. Here we have Gamal Abdel Nasser, the guy that's the head of Egypt. And here we have the Jordanian king, the Hashemite king of Jordan, King Hassan. So, I mean, these guys are hanging out all the time. All the time. This particular instance is, well, we'll get to that in just a little bit. But these people have connections. So while the Arab and Palestinian organizations can move freely anywhere in the Arab world, the Israelis don't necessarily have that same, angle ability to do so. Now, they have a very big sort of special secret forces group, like the Mossad, but that's, that's sort of a reactive and spying network, not necessarily, I don't know. It's a mess. It's a really big mess. And to top this off, in 1969, Levi Eshkol is going to die. And that is going to cause new elections, and we get a new Israeli prime minister, whose name is Golda Meir. Where's my images? Where's the button? Here we go. Boom. So this is Golda Meir. This was a pretty monumental moment, by the way. For Middle Eastern countries, Meir is the first female head of state in, well, I guess in modern times. If we go way, way back into the ancient period of time, there were lady rulers, but she is the first lady elected ruler of a Middle Eastern country in the modern age. She was very savvy, very capable. She had a lot of political connections. She had been involved in a lot of the political debates. She had been a member of the Knesset, so she had a lot of chops. And she's going to take over after Eshkol's heart attack. Eshkol, by the way, does die. I don't know if I directly says that. I know I said he had a heart attack. But he does die. And this is going to... this is going to be seen as an opportunity by the Arab groups. They're going to start saying, like, okay, well, they've lost their head of state. Maybe they're going to be in a weakened position. Maybe we can sort of push on them a little bit. And Nasser is going to start something that he calls the War of Attrition. And it's not necessarily an open invasion of the Sinai or re-invasion of the Sinai. What it is designed to be a consistent, low-level pain in the butt to Israel. They're going to shell Israeli positions inside of the Sinai, especially the other side of the Suez Canal. They're going to support PLO activity, Fayadin attacks. They're going to fly over as much stuff as they can and maybe target some stuff if they have the opportunity. They're going to harass the Israeli Navy, which was very, very small at the time. And they had actually lost a couple of their boats in a submarine not too long before this. Did you says that, Shane? Did you says it? Hey, you nomad. We need to do some more shout-outs. I've been very dilatory with my shout-outs tonight. First off, we have I Am Batbird, who so graciously spent channel points so that we could have this discussion, and then I delayed it because, computers died on me. You should go follow Batbird. Game streamer sometimes. Traditional art streamer sometimes. Digital art streamer sometimes, but always a good time. We also have with us the Visual Nomad, who is a oil painter extraordinaire. We both share a deep and abiding love for the TV show Letterkenny, so that's sort of the kind of the inside language that we all speak now. It's a great place. You should go hang out with Nomad. Really fun to talk to. Very, very similar wit. If you appreciate my kind of dry, goofy humor, I think you'll also appreciate the Nomad's humor. But I hope everybody's doing well. Hey, how are you, Nomad? I hope you're having a good night, good Yeah, you're nighttime now. I guess everybody might be nighttime. Who knows? Anyway, so this war of attrition is basically just a mess. It's a continuous border skirmish kind of stuff. It's shelling stuff across the Suez. Nasser was basically trying to wear Israel down. And really, it's really ineffective. It doesn't actually do anything to Israel. It doesn't really hurt them that much. And at one point, Israel actually sneaks an invasion on the Egyptian side of the Suez. They had they had captured some Egyptian tanks during the 6-Day War, and they fitted one out and snuck it into Egypt with a whole bunch of IDF soldiers dressed as Egyptian soldiers, and the tank basically starts blowing stuff up behind the Egyptian lines because everybody's like, oh, look, it's an Egyptian tank. You know, it's totally supposed to be here, but it's really manned by Israelis, and they just start basically wasting stuff. So the war of attrition really kind of like backlashes on Nasser, and it really doesn't do very much at all. It just sort of fizzles. You're doing well. Good to hear. I'm glad you're doing good. Glad you're doing good. Always, Batbird, always. We have good friends here, right? Everybody should go hang out with each other. I enjoy it. Okay. So, what's going to be the result? The result is the Arab world is going to feel very pressured by this. They don't like the idea that the Israelis are doing as well as they're doing, and they don't like the fact that it seems like the rest of the world is not going to be able to force Israel to back down. So the Arab world is going to have to, if they decided that they want to get rid of Israel, which they clearly did, they're going to have to take that into their own hands. And the PLO is going to go on a really big recruitment drive. And this is basically going to pull a lot of, especially younger people, into the larger PLO network, and especially in Jordan. They're going to get a really big swell of support from the Jordanian population, and this is going to start causing trouble. The PLO groups were based in Jordan, so their headquarters were in Jordan. And in certain parts of the regions, the PLO basically starts ignoring what the Jordanian government is saying. So the Jordanian government is run by the Hashemite family. The king at the time's name was King Hussein. And the PLO basically decided that they got to do whatever they wanted to inside of Jordan. And this was not sitting very well with King Hussein. And so the PLO decided, we're going to try to kill him. And they tried to kill him twice. They did not kill him, but they tried to kill him twice. So and this is kind of a bizarre moment where King Hussein was on their side. He had sent forces during the 6-Day War. He had built up and sent aid during the Sinai War. He had not recognized Israel. He was a signatory of the Khartoum Resolution, you know, the no peace, you know, no recognition, no negotiation. So he was on their side, and yet they got really tired of him trying to keep their stuff limited, because essentially Hussein was the head of state, and he did not want Israeli invasions going on into his territory because he had already lost the West Bank. The West Bank used to be Jordanian, and he had lost that in the 6-Day War. He did not want further territory loss. And trust me, if the Israeli government thought that they could have taken stuff, they probably would have. Because Israel sort of had this larger idea of reestablishing ancient boundaries that went back to periods of time when you had like the Hasmonean kingdom, which controlled territory over in Jordan. So it's a tenuous position for Hussein to be in, and when they start trying to assassinate him, that just, it really gets under his skin. And in 1971, he's going to decide that all the Fedayeen have to go. That they just have to leave. He's going to start pushing them out of Jordan. And this is going to cause a lot of trouble inside of the larger Arab League organization, because Israel doesn't like this, Syria doesn't like this, and especially Egypt does not like this at all. And in the midst of this, the PFLP is going to start hijacking some Jordanian planes. And in one particular instance, which is called the Dawson's Field hijacking, they're going to blow up some Jordanian planes. No, they don't actually get him. They don't actually assassinate him. They just try. So they blow up some Jordanian, and these, by the way, are like citizen planes. Citizen planes. Civilian planes. They're not military planes. They're passenger planes. Okay. Okay. Hey, Bramboleo. How are you? Good to see you. Welcome in. So Hussein decides all of the PLO have to leave. They've got to move their headquarters. They've got to get out of Jordan. They've got to go somewhere else. But this starts driving rifts between the Arab League members, right? Because they're all supposed to be working together to destroy Israel. That's sort of the larger goal. And the PLO is going to move from Jordan to Lebanon. And this is actually going to be an interesting moment for Israel, because they do some stuff that is, it's not necessarily gestures of good faith or goodwill towards the Jordanians, but they move some of their military border patrols away from the border of Jordan. And this was something that was evident, and this was sort of, well, I mean, it's sort of generally considered to be kind of an overture of, we see you, and we appreciate that. We're not friends, but thanks. Now, of course, what they say is, the sort of the official story is, we've got to move these units up to protect now the border with Lebanon. But if we look at the map, I mean, the border that Israel shares with Jordan is all of this. The border that they share with Lebanon is just this, right? So there was a lot of stuff that they moved. And this was pretty evidently done as a sort of like kind of move, right? And then some weird stuff goes down. And this is probably, if you know anything about the Israeli stuff, this might be something that you have heard about. In 1972, the Olympics were held in Munich. This was, of course, West German. Is that what you appreciates about Jordan, Shanes? I appreciates that they've pushed out the Fedzayins. I appreciate the fact that in a way of viewing this, Hussein recognized that the larger threat to his people was not Israel invading, it was the PLO acting unilaterally, which might trigger an Israeli invasion. I don't know what Professor Tricia would have said about that, but I don't think she taught history. Maybe Jordanian women's studies. Nobody knows who Professor Tricia is. Anyway, so the Olympics, did I spell it wrong? Oh yeah, the Olympics. Good gracious, I have such bad spelling. Olympics. There we go. I can't type and talk at the same time, right? We all know this. Now I'm super... Okay, yeah, Olympia. Okay. I've been there. I've been to Olympia, but I've not been to... Have I been to Munich? I think I've flown through Munich, but I've never really, been to Munich. I can't talk and type at the same time. I don't know what happens to my brain, but it is very much like a one line of communication only activated. Thank you for calling out my bad spelling, Joey. I do actually appreciate it, because that would be the part that shows up as the like the title placard for the stream. Like when I record the VOD and it pops up, that would be the one that would show up as like me with a horrible spelling in the front. That would just be my luck, right? Okay, so the 1972 Olympics. What's going on here? All right. This is being held in West Germany. This was sort of a celebration of West Germany kind of rejoining the rest of the world. There's a lot of politics that are involved in putting the Olympics in West Germany. Of course, again, this is Cold War, so Munich, West Germany is right there by East Germany where the Russians are, etc. Here's the thing. There was a group of people that were sort of loosely aligned with the PFLP, a group that's called Black September, who are going to go to Munich with the goal of killing the Israeli Olympic team, or at least doing as much damage as they can to the Olympic team of Israel. This is, of course, is terrorist activity, and this is going to be designed to strike fear at the hearts of Israel and make them want to stay at home and, you know, increase the attention to the situation, etc., etc. Shut up, West Germany! Starfleet Captain Jean-Luc Picard. This is not Earl Grey, so I can't do Picard impersonation. But I do hope that my conversation is engaging. And there's a little bit of a nod for you. Anyway, so the Black September group is going to break its way into the dormitory where the Israeli men Olympic athletes are staying. They kill 2 of them during the break-in, and they kidnap 9 more. Also, hey, you Vipers, good to see you. Glad you could make it by. Affirmative. So they kill 2 Olympians and they capture 9 more. And it's at this point that the West German government gets involved, and they find where the Black September members are sort of holed up with the hostages, and the West German government sends in basically police commandos to try to recover the hostages. This does not go well. All of the rest of the hostages are killed. There were 8 Black September members. Total, 5 of them get killed, and 3 of them get arrested. So this brings the total to 11 Israeli athletes that are killed. And I have this image here that shows them. So these are the 11 Israeli Olympians that were killed in the Munich attacks. Again, there were 8 members of the Black September Palestinian organization. 5 of them were killed during the raid. 3 of them escaped. 3 of them were arrested. So at that point, the West German government has 3 of these terrorists in custody. And as you might expect, the Israeli government says, you need to give those people to us. We want to extradite them, we want to put them on trial, and we want to kill them. But the West German government is like, I don't think we're going to give you the prisoners. I don't think we're going to let you have these prisoners. And this is a sticking point. This is a big bone of contention, because Israel was really, really interested in putting these people on trial and bringing them to justice. And then West Germany does something that is going to make Israel really, really mad. So if you'll remember, one of the things that the PFLP was really sort of good at is hijacking a plane. And the PFLP hijacks Lufthansa Flight 615. That's full of West German citizens. And in exchange for the 3 members of the Black September crew, the PFLP releases the German hostages. So these 3 hijackers go free and are allowed to rejoin their comrades. This does not sit well with the Israeli government. You may have already answered this. You are making coffee, but how accurate is the Spielberg movie? I'm not sure. Are you talking about the movie that's called Munich? It's kind of accurate. They make so the kind of the big points are accurate, but a lot of the stuff in between is really heavily dramatized. So like the response, the squad that gets put together to track these people down, and then the subsequent tracking of them down, that stuff is more or less accurate. But a lot of like the day-to-day operation stuff is completely made up. It is what I would consider loosely based on history, not necessarily deeply or strongly based in history. But it's a fine movie. I mean, as a piece of cinema, it's a good movie, and if you're interested in this stuff, it's a place to start. It's not a place to stop. If you watch that and you see some of the stuff, you want to go do some research on your own, excellent. And if that perks your interest, go for it. But I would not say that the movie Munich is necessarily very historically accurate. It's a Hollywood movie. It's a Hollywood movie, right? So, the response to this is going to be the nonfiction book is better. I've never actually read the book. It would be an interesting read. The problem that I have with reading books is I'm already reading too many books. I'm currently reading 4 books, and I need to finish some of them so that I can finish all of them before I start new things, but inevitably when I finish one, I'm just going to pick another one up. It's so hard, and everybody's always telling me like, hey, you like history, you should read this book, or hey, you'd be interested in this, you should read this book. So I basically have this like this giant stack of books to read, and it's just really hard to get through them all. It's kind of a curse, right? Black September sounds like the name of an emo band a la Panic at the Disco or My Chemical Romance. My Chemical Romance would be very angry that you called them an emo band. Wish they would have gone with that instead of the terrorism stuff. Yeah, don't we all, right? Okay, so as a response to the 1972 Munich killings, the Israeli government secretly authorizes a group of individuals under the codename Operation Wrath of God. That's kind of a powerful name. Like if you're going to name a hit squad, naming them Operation Wrath of God is kind of one of the strongest terms you could probably go with. And the government basically gives this group unlimited license. Like, just go kill them. Go find the 3 people that were involved, that got loose, and kill them. Wherever they are, kill them. And they get 2 of them. They get 2 of the targets, and one of the targets escapes and lives secretly until the end of his life. And actually gave an interview, I believe in the 1990s. I think it was maybe televised, or it might not have been televised. I can't remember if it was televised or not. I was very, very young at that point. I think it was like 92 or 94 or something like that. Anyway, I'm sure you could go dig up the movie clip if you wanted to watch this, or the video clip. But yeah, one of them gave an interview in the 90s and was basically like, yeah, I would do it again. I don't feel any remorse. Israel doesn't deserve to exist, so on and so forth. So this person pretty clearly was not repentant of the action. And I believe that person ended up living out the rest of his life and dying of natural causes. So I don't think that the Israeli forces got all of them. But that is not all that is entailed within Operation Wrath of God. There's also going to be a targeted attack against the PLO itself. Do you know what the Black September name is in reference to? Like, was it this? So there was a. Okay, so Black September itself is in reference to a few things. Number one, it's a reference to the period of time when the PLO and Jordan were fighting. That particular period of time is referred to as Black September. But there was a group of the PFLP that decided to take that and use it as their sort of thing. Like, look, if we're being kicked out, we're going to do it. We're going to kind of own it and turn it out. Wrath of Golda doesn't quite have the same ring. Yeah. To quote Jack Nicholas in Mars Attacks, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. That's Meatloaf. To quote Meatloaf, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. 'Cause 2 out of 3 ain't bad. If you know the Meatloaf song. Anyway, the IDF is going to target several buildings that are in Lebanon where the PLO meet. They're going to blow some of them up. They're going to actually send ground forces to try to basically kill everybody in some of these buildings. Viper's good to see you. Hope everything's okay. But good to see you. Glad that you were able to hang out. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on in response to this, and it does hurt a lot of the PLO's operating capacity for a little while. Unfortunately for the Israeli side, this is going to bring a lot of attention to the Israeli forces' ability to counterattack and counterstrike, and this is actually going to lead to people kind of moving to the side of the PLO. Now, it's fair to say that even though the PLO was working up here in Lebanon and doing its thing here in Lebanon, when they moved out of Jordan to Lebanon, this actually started causing trouble in Lebanon as well. And this was going to be something that we'll probably talk about in the next installment, if we do have a next installment of History of Modern Israel. Because there's a civil war in Lebanon that is partially responsible by the PLO doing the same sort of thing in Lebanon that it did in Jordan. So that is actually where I planned on stopping today. As always, though, if you have any questions about this stuff, I would be happy to answer. If there are any sort of points that I could clarify, or lines that I could connect in the background, I would be happy to do so. And otherwise, I'm going to start working on a poll here. So any questions or comments, or anybody want to redeem any points or anything like that? I'm going to zip over here. Is modern Israel the earliest Jewish-led nation? No, Moose. The oldest Jewish-led nation is a kingdom of Israelites that is roughly dated to around, this could actually get me in some trouble depending on which sort of archaeological people that you're speaking to. They were probably established somewhere in the 800s. There are some people that say that they were established as far back as the 1000s BC. So, quite a while. That kingdom split in the around the 800s. The northern kingdom was destroyed and taken into exile by the Assyrians, and in the 700s, and then the southern kingdom was destroyed by the Babylonians in 586 and taken into exile. They stayed up there until Persia conquered Babylon. It was about 40 years or so. I think the exile was 37 or 38 years, and then they came back and reestablished a vassal state in that region for about 250, 300 years until they were then conquered by Alexander the Great. And then it was all the way until the 200s before they started fighting back against the Seleucid Empire, and they regained independence with a group called the Hasmonean Dynasty, which was in power for about 100 years in the 100s and the double digits of the BC era. And then they became a Roman province, and then they were not an independent nation again, led by Jewish people up until 1948. So that's kind of a very, very brief, very bare bones rundown. I can elaborate on any of that if you have questions. This is kind of my world. Anybody else have any questions? I'd be happy to answer. What I'm doing right now is I am setting up a new poll because this is a viewer request stream, even though it's weird. It's on a Friday. Did I miss that in the normal streams? I guess so, because we talked about all of that in the normal streams. So that I know for a fact that we covered the Iron Age kingdoms. I know there were actually independent streams on the Hasmonean Dynasty. No. I don't know if they were independent. We might have done Hasmonean Dynasty and Nabateans in Jordan at the same in a combo stream for a couple of phases. And then we talked about them being conquered by Rome. We talked about the Jewish revolt. Yeah, so we've covered all of that in sort of previous streams. All right, so it is time, my friends, for us to select. Oh wow! Let me read this comment by Metrant, and then we'll do some stuff. Not really about the topic, but maybe about streaming in general. What do you do to keep sound quality of your voice good? You've been messing around with possibility of streaming, but you're kind of put off by the echoey quality of the sound, as well as the fact that you don't have anything actually interested to stream. I reckon you have too little stuff where I live that softens the sound, so it's kind of bouncing all over the place. Okay, yeah, so one of the things that I have is I have a Blue Yeti microphone, which is this guy. There's the Zaku, by the way. So the Blue Yeti has multiple settings. It has 2 condenser coils, and you can turn it to one side, sort of a front condenser coil. You can turn it on the back side. You can turn it on both. And I have it set to just basically directionally point at my mouth. So I talk sort of into it. Behind me, I'd have to turn the whole setup around. There's a wall. It's about probably about 4.5 feet away. But behind me is a big stack of foam that blocks the wall itself, so that when I talk, if anything hits that wall, it basically just gets absorbed into the foam. The room that I'm in does have wood floors, but I have put down... I don't know if you can see these if I move it around, but I have some pads that I've put down that are specifically designed to basically keep things from bouncing off of them. And then behind me, I have you can see the thing that's kind of like covered in the white there. That's actually a dresser, but actually acts to absorb some of the stuff that might be bouncing back. After that, even with all that setup, then I basically have to sit down here and make a lot of weird noises. I ran sound for a long time for bands and for, music production and things like that. So I'll sit here before a stream, especially like earlier today, when I was having to reset everything up, and I'll just make loud noises. And I'll yell and I'll whistle and I'll make clicking noises and I'll snap my fingers and I'll try to make echoes happen. And then I'll go into the audio settings and I'll manually cut things down so that my vocal range stays into the like the green and yellow area. So it's something that anybody can do. You just sort of have to decide to do it and then start poking at it. It's not really as hard as it sounds. You just have to be willing to put the time in to get it straight. And I'd be happy to help if you had any specific questions. You're welcome to shoot me a message on the Discord or anything like that. Discord. There we go. Must not have picked up on them being Jewish or something, minus the Jewish rebellion part. Yeah, so the Iron Age kingdom starts as a result of the collapse of the Bronze Age. When the big powers fall apart, the smaller regional kingdoms get to pop up. That is a direct cause of the independence of the Jewish state in that period of time. They are destroyed by the Assyrians or the Babylonians. They're freed by the Persians. They live under Persian rule for a while. We talked about them a little bit in the expansion of Alexander the Great. We talked about them a little bit as a region that is argued over by the Diadochi, the people that were trying to carve up Alexander's empire, especially the rulers Ptolemy and Seleucus, who both wanted that region. Ptolemy ends up with them, but then Seleucids take it away. So there we go. All right, got a Blue Yeti yourself, and they are really great at picking up. They are. So you should probably look into something similar if you're actually going to be serious about it. Yeah, it's not that bad. Did I miss something? Why is everybody going away? It will go a long way. Are we waving? You're going to set up your Yeti for irritable bowel syndrome? Oh man, I have IBS, and it's nothing to set up. You just eat a lot, and then bad stuff happens. And there's no way to really control it. Don't eat greasy food. You have to limit how much spicy food you can have, and you also just have to limit how much food you can have. If I get hungry and I eat a lot and I get full, I am on a clock. And I actually refer to it as, oh, I'm on the clock. And what that means is I have a limited amount of time before I need to get back to home base before something happens. And you probably didn't want to know that much about me, but I overshare all the time. Batbird, I am right there with you, my friend. It is not a fun scenario, and I enjoy going to buffets, but I also enjoy going to buffets within 20 minutes of driving distance from my house. All right, now let us select our next topic. So here's what I'm about to do. When I say go, I'm about to ask you for what you want to cover next. So this can be a topic, a person, a thing. It can be modern. It can be ancient. It can be basically anywhere in history. I reserve the right to tweak things or say no, but we'll take the first 4 good ideas. So what do you want to cover next? Go. Second, and if second is too boring by itself, the third crusade. So the next crusade, we could do the second crusade. We'll take a closer look at the Yeti for OBS, as well as getting some kind of rug for your room. Yeah, rugs are really a big deal. Putting up curtains. Curtains are a big deal. I need curtains on this window beside me, but I had curtains up in They were really, really ugly. They're like this kind of brown leftover from the 1970s curtains. You guys, your situation is a history of NASA. Okay, yeah, we can do that. That would be interesting. Talk about some Nazis again. History of Krav Maga. I don't know if I could do a whole stream on that. I don't think I could do a whole stream on that one. I don't know enough about it. I'll have to do some research, and then if it is available, I'll just forcibly use my power of nepotism to put it on the stream options next time. Have you done anything about the Swedish Empire? I haven't, but I would totally be interested in doing that. I really don't know enough about Krav Maga to even know if there is enough to talk about on stream. I mean, you know what you're going to say, unless you're tired of doing it by now. We could put it on the list. This is a tough list. All right, so here's what's about to happen. I'm about to click the start poll button. If you are in the room, if you are listening to the sound of my voice, if you're one of the people hanging out here, you get an option to vote. And you get it. You don't have to be a follower. You don't have to be a subscriber. You can just be a person. So when I hit start poll, everybody gets to vote. Ready, and here we go. What shall we cover next? The poll is now live. So above you in the chat, there should be a thing that says current poll. And it says, what shall we cover next? And if you click the little down button like this, you will get to see the options. And at that point, you get to pick. And everybody gets to vote. And right now we've only got 3 people voting. So everybody should go vote. Everybody. We've got, I don't even know how many people we have in here. Probably not too many on a Friday night. 13 people. Everybody should go vote. All 13 people that are in the room, go vote. You don't have to be me or anybody else. You just go do your thing. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We got most people have voted, but still not everybody. There are still 5 of you out there that have not voted, and you get to. You get to go vote. You should go do so. Exercise your voice. Make yourself heard. So one choice is the history of you know what you're going to say. No, I just know that Batbird is really interested in the history of Israel. Puts on his I voted sticker. Can we get I voted stickers? It's a 4-way unitie. Oh my good gracious. What are we going to do in this situation? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 people. Come on now. Somebody else. You can still vote. There is still time. I'm being visited by a puppy wearing a cone head. Oh, the puppy. Somebody go vote. Somebody go vote. All right, we got one more person. There's one more person voting. Oh, no. Oh, no. Now we've got to... Somebody go vote real quick and break the tie. Somebody go vote. Somebody go vote. Or we're going to have a runoff. Proficient Treasure says voting is our most important responsibilities. Hold on a second. I think the puppy is just demanding. Whoa, come here. Come here. You see the puppy? Oh my goodness. The puppy with her cone head. You're going to give me sugars? Oh my goodness. Hello, Kaylee. Hello. Oh yes, the puppy had to have surgery last week, and the puppy still has stitches in her side, and she was doing so well, not messing with her stitches. And then today, she decided that she was going to start licking on them, and licked the scabs off and started bleeding a little bit, so we had to put the cone back on her. Did we get the results? Yes, Schwanite, we did. One of the lumps was a lipoma, which was sort of benign. It's just a big wad of fat. And one of them was something that I can't remember, but it's basically like jacked up follicles, like hair follicles that had started kind of going funky and messing with the actual layers of the skin itself. So it was kind of bunching up and making these lumpy things. And it's very, very rare. Apparently, the vet had only ever seen that 3 times in his whole career. So I can't remember what the actual word is. If you want to go to the Discord, I typed all the technical stuff out. I can't remember what the second part was called. But none of it was cancerous. She is expected to make a full recovery. She's being just as puppy as she always is. So I feel like she's doing all right. Yeah, absolutely. So gross, but okay, basically. Yeah, pretty much. It's really weird and gross, but it's okay. All right, so we're going to have a runoff. So here we go with a runoff. 2 minutes on the clock. Everybody go vote again. So this is a runoff to see who's going to be our next topic. As a reminder, the number 2 position does... Oh, crud, I forgot to bring over the number 2 from last time. Oh, well. It'll pop back up, I guess. And this will inevitably end up tied somehow or something like that. Everybody go vote again. We're voting off between Second Crusade and Swedish Empire. I would like both of these topics. I would have no problem doing either one. But I'm a giant history nerd. There's not too many things that I'm going to be like, I don't want to do that. Oh, man. I'm out of tea. By morning, we'll be covered with voted stickers. You'd like to hear about the Swedish Empire, but only after we finish the Crusades. Again, everybody gets to go vote, and we're stuck at a 4-4 tie right now. So, okay, now we've got a break in the tie. We've got a break in the tie. Somebody else go vote, or everybody else go vote. 9, we had 6. We had 10 people vote last time, so we've only got 9 people voting this time. Everybody can go vote. Everybody, everybody, everybody. Somebody's going to spike vote Swedish Empire, like right here at the end, like they're sniping something off of eBay. Hey, Kelly, go vote real quick. Kelly, did you get a chance to vote? You can just tell me what your vote is if you want to. Oh, you did vote. Awesome. Cool. All right. So there we go. We will do the Second Crusade for our next viewer request stream. And for those of you that voted for Swedish Empire, don't feel bad. Again, that'll come back on the next poll. Just make sure that I get reminded. I forgot this time, so it's okay. Okie dokie. So there's that decided. Now, the only thing left to decide is where we're going to go on a raid. So let's see who's online. Did I say hey to Shiggy? Hey Shiggy, I hope I said hey to you. Who's around to go raid? Oh, I know where you're going to raid. Alright, we don't get a chance to raid Autumn very much because he usually does not stream on nights that I stream. So we are going to go raid Autumn Rain Turkel. He is an art streamer. He has very much the sort of sense of humor that I have. I really appreciate hanging out in Autumn's room. So we're going to go raid Autumn. Thanks everybody for hanging out. Had a good time. I'm sorry it took forever for this to actually happen. You know, the world with computers is not always so stable. Crusade Part 2, Electric Boogaloo. We will probably include some of the history of the Crusader kingdoms, Crusader states in that, because it really won't make too much sense unless we talk about why the Second Crusade happened. But, you know, such is life, and it'll be okay. So we're going to go raid Autumn. He's a cool dude. Make sure you show him some love when we get there. As always, our battle cry is adventure, and if you have those lovely adventure hat emotes, make sure you throw those into the chat room when we get there. Everybody coming on the raid? Everybody coming with us on the raid? I hope so. That's okay if you want to go somewhere else, right? Anyway, yeah, thanks everybody. So the next time I will definitely be on stream is Tuesday. We're going to basically do 2 adventures in history. You know what? I don't know if I even want to do that. I don't know. We'll see. Let's plan on maybe Tuesday, but I also might cancel Tuesday if I can't get this computer situation figured out. We'll see. Tuesday, probably, definitely Thursday. And we'll do 2 adventures in history next week instead of an adventure and a viewer request, because this week just got completely borked. Right. Anyway, thank you all. I hope you have a great one. I really appreciate everybody hanging out. Let's go raid Autumn, and I'll see you around. Take it easy. I do get the fan tomorrow, but we'll see if it works. We'll hope. Bye, everybody.